How to deploy CodeIgniter 4 apps to production has long been a confusing topic for novice CodeIgniter developers. In this video, we'll describe the typical steps needed for your CodeIgniter 4 project to prepare for production deployment. I have CodeIgniter Wizard up and running on my Mac now, and I'll open a copy of an existing CI4 project in the Finder to duplicate it as a separate production project. Although CodeIgniter Wizard is extensively mentioned throughout this tutorial, the solutions described here can be applied to almost any CodeIgniter 4 project. I'll press Command-H to hide CodeIgniter Wizard now, and then I'll open the duplicated project folder in Visual Studio Code to prepare it for production deployment. Now we need to edit the .env file in the IDE to change the value of the CI_environment variable to production from development. Next, we'll open the integrated terminal to run a composer command to update the project, removing all development dependencies. This also updates the framework version to the latest release. And now we'll prepare the folders to upload to the web server. To do that, we need to break the project folder into two parts. I'm referring to our blog post on this to see the breakdown structure of a typical CodeIgniter 4 project. The public directory corresponds to the actual public_HTML or www directory on the web server. So all the contents of the public folder are what we will be uploading to the public HTML directory on the hosting server. The rest of the project directories and files should typically go to an upper location in the hierarchy. First, I'll create a zip archive from the public directory to begin with. Then, I'll take the public folder and its zip file outside the project's main folder. I'll press Command and period while holding down the Shift key to get the invisible files displayed in the Finder to ensure the .env file is present in the project folder, because I'll also zip this folder without public now. Coming up next is preparing the internet-facing web server on shared hosting, for which we have chosen A2, a high-performance web hosting company based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, USA. Founded in 2001, A2 Hosting has gained a reputation for its speed and reliability. One of A2 Hosting's major selling points is speed. However, besides speed and uptime, there are several other reasons why we endorse A2, such as unlimited free SSL certificates for all your domains and subdomains, your own Git-based remote version repositories from which you can deploy your web applications to production, and the ability to run Node.js, Python, and Ruby apps. Besides PHP. But that's not all. A2 also supports both MySQL and PostgreSQL databases, where each DB size is allowed at a maximum of 5 gigabytes. In addition, there are a couple of different automatic backup mechanisms for your files and databases, not to mention advanced caching tools such as Memcached are at your disposal. Now let's get back to the task at hand. This is a brand new hosting account on which I'll deploy our sample CodeIgniter 4 web app. So I'll first clean up the public HTML directory a little bit before I upload the public zip file here. Let me check the content of the robots text here to see if it has anything worth keeping. Well, nothing special here. I'll move on to uploading the public zip. But first, I'll place the browser window and the window of the project folder in the file system side by side so that drag and drop uploading will be accessible from one to the other. And I'll make sure its contents go to public HTML here. Finally, I'll upload the project folder to my home directory on the hosting Linux server. After that, pressing the refresh button sometimes works, but sometimes it doesn't. So I navigate to a child directory and then back to the parent to update the file and folder list just like that. And now that the zip shows up at last. I'm about to extract the project folder to the root of my user's home directory on the server. However, this is typically not a best practice unless the project is the only web application or website to be hosted on the given account on the server. In this case, I'm demonstrating a scenario as if it is, so it's okay. But in cases where the given hosting account is or will be used for multiple web apps or sites, these projects had better reside under a directory that would be easy to distinguish from the standard directories needed for the functioning of this shared hosting system. We'll try to demonstrate that in another video. Now I need to edit the index.php file under public HTML to indicate the correct path of the web application, which is no longer its parent directory. So when a user visits the URL of this web app, the server naturally will first execute this index.php file under public HTML in response to the incoming HTTP request. On line 32, it will load CodeIgniter's paths config file, looking it up at a path concatenated with the value of the front controller. Because I uploaded the web app at a custom location, I now need to indicate its current path relative to the location of this very file. This may look complicated at first, but actually it's simple. The web app directory cannot be accessed directly by the users accessing the URL via their web browsers. The users can access only the index.php file, which in turn acts like an intermediary and executes the framework scripts, and then your custom code built on top of the framework, and finally renders an HTTP response to the user. As a one-time task, I'll go to the settings and check Show Hidden Files, also known as dot files, such as the htaccess file. This is a server configuration file used in Apache web servers for directory-level configuration, including URL redirection, security, and caching. It comes by default in the public folder of CI4. I'm deleting files named .ds_store, and the directories called Mac OS 10 prefixed with underscores, which are created by Mac OS to carry metadata specific to its own file system. But we don't have any use for them here on a Linux server. Of course, if you're using Windows, you won't be bothered with them anyway. Now I'll go to the domain section of cPanel and turn on forcing HTTPS redirections on the primary domain. This setting is then applied to all existing domains on this account. A2 hosting automatically installs SSL certificates from Let's Encrypt, so I don't even need to deal with that myself. Yet another A2 advantage. Next up, we'll prepare the MySQL database on the shared hosting. I'll go to the related section of cPanel, where I can create a new empty database, view and create users, and give a DB user privileges to work with a database, all using the forms on this page. First, I need to decide on the database and the username. To get some hints, I'll refer to the DB credentials of the app's local development environment. In this case, CodeIgniter Wizard, because it gives me a convenient under-the-hood view of the database objects of each web app project. CIWiz also provides a convenient way of reusing the database and user credentials. On cPanel-based shared hosting, database and usernames are typically prefixed with the account's username followed by an underscore. I'll basically create a schema and then a user, and then give that user all the privileges for that schema. Then all I need to do left is enter these credentials in the .env file. Since SSL is already enabled, I'll also make the URL of the app HTTPS-based and set Force Global Secure Requests to true. Next up, we'll copy the local MySQL database to the internet-facing server. There are dozens of ways of doing this, but as a quick solution, I will use Navicat to copy the tables from the local dev server. Transferring of tables and data to the remote server is now complete as well. This concludes our process of production deployment. We can now finally see our web app in action on the internet. I'll enter the secure URL and get to its dashboard, which is set as the home page by default. It is up and running all right. You can find videos demonstrating the making of this web app and similar ones on our channel. Be sure to subscribe. If you have any questions or suggestions, comment below. Supporting us with your interactions will help us create more content like this. See the description for links to the products and services in the video.